The Pentagon has just released its first UAP report. The 45-page report reviewed claims made by current and former government employees that the military is hiding UFOs and even alien bodies. The report states there is no evidence the government is or has been conducting reverse engineering of extraterrestrial technology. Let's bring in correspondent Joe Khalil, who is following this developing story live on Capitol Hill there. Joe, what are the major takeaways from this new report?
Yeah, so the big takeaway is the Pentagon says they have found no concrete evidence to prove that the United States government has ever been in possession of any sort of aircraft, they say, that is of non-human origin. And they also say that there is no evidence they could find that any government program or private company tried to reverse engineer extraterrestrial technology. That is what's in the report. Another big takeaway is they say that people who have been making some of those claims, even those in Congress and under oath, were not necessarily doing so in bad faith or lying, but they say that many people genuinely believe some of these things based on what they've heard. Now, I do want to quote from the report here in just a second, but first, a couple of big caveats here. One is that there is an acknowledgement in this report that there are things in our airspace the Department of Defense simply cannot explain. They say that there have been things that, for one reason or another, are anomalous, or in other words, they're not able to sort of define how they're functioning and how they work. They say, though, in this report, that is a small percentage of the documented cases that they have found. There's also an acknowledgement in this report that there has been a lot of money and effort spent on trying to investigate these things. And oftentimes those programs have been hidden from the public, have been classified, and they put serious resources behind these efforts. So here's part of the report that we read, and I'm going to quote from it directly. It says, AARO's found no evidence that U.S. companies have possessed off-world technologies. Executive scientists and chief technology officers of these companies named by interviewees met with the director of AARO and denied on the record that they've ever recovered, possessed, or engaged in reverse engineering of extraterrestrial technology. It goes on to say, AARO recognizes many people sincerely hold versions of these beliefs, which are based on their perception of past experiences and the experiences of others whom they trust, or media outlets that they believe to be sources of credible and verifiable information. Now, we're not hearing much on the record yet from the people who've made some of these claims, but I can tell you just generally from my sources that I've been speaking with, there is going to be some pushback to the conclusions in this report, and I imagine those are going to be coming very soon. Another really interesting thing in this report, Nichole, I'm not sure we've heard this before, but AARO, the department within DoD that investigates UAPs, does acknowledge and admit that in 2021, there was a program created specifically to reverse engineer UAPs. They are acknowledging this. They say, though, that program expanded despite lack of evidence or mission needed to justify this program. They say Congress was notified about these programs, but that the programs never recovered or ever reverse engineered any technology, let alone off-world spacecraft. So I think that is a big acknowledgement that's in this report. We've got a lot more questions about it now, having read through some of it. It's 63 pages, so we're going to continue to dig in and pull out some interesting facts. Remember, this is volume 1. There is a volume 2 that is coming, Nichole, and in volume 2, it's written here that there are a number of examples and reports about our nuclear facilities that actually hold nuclear weapons, and reporting that is some of those weapons had been disabled when UAPs have been over those things. They say they're going to acknowledge more about those specifics in volume 2. We're not sure when that's going to come, but again, a lot of questions as we start to dig into this.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.